The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars like a metal city. Ships from 12 different alien worlds docked at its ports, bringing their leaders to an emergency meeting. Inside the great council chamber, beings that looked nothing like each other sat around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. Ambassador Kate Morrison walked into the room and felt all eyes turned toward her. She was the only human there, and she knew most of these. Aliens still thought of Earth as the new kid who didn't belong. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. She took her seat between two very different creatures. On her left sat Veltar, the Zephyrian ambassador. His people looked almost like humans but were much taller and thinner. Their skin had a silver shine to it, and their eyes were completely black. Veltar moved with the grace of a dancer, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like music. The Zephyrians were known across the galaxy for building the most beautiful ships and having perfect manners. On her right was something that gave Kate nightmares the first time she saw it. Hive Queen Zix looked like a giant insect that had learned to walk on two legs. Her body was covered in hard, black shell-like armor. Forearms ended in sharp claws, and her head had huge compound eyes that saw everything. When she was angry or excited, she would click her jaw parts together in a sound like breaking bones. The Hive species was feared for their bioships that grew instead of being built. Across the table, the resonant representative didn't have a body at all. It was a collection of floating crystals that hummed and glowed different colors when it talked. The other aliens called this one Humara, though Kate wasn't sure if that was a name or just the sound it made. The resonants were living minerals that could sing songs so beautiful they made people cry, or so terrible they could shatter mountains. Veltar stood up and his musical voice filled the chamber. Friends, we face the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. The Void Hunters have consumed 3 entire star systems in the past month. Billions of lives have been lost. If we do not act now, they will continue until nothing remains but empty space and their mechanical hunger. The hologram in the center of the table showed the devastation. Entire worlds had been stripped down to their cores. Space stations were gone. Even asteroids and comets had been consumed and turned into more Void Hunter ships. The machines looked like geometric nightmares, all sharp angles and pulsing lights. They ate everything and turned it into more of themselves. Hive Queen Zix clicked her mandibles loudly. The Hive agrees. We must strike with overwhelming force. I propose each species contribute their finest warships. We will need at least 300 vessels to match their numbers. The crystal being called Humara began to glow brighter. Its harmonic voice resonated through the chamber. The resonants concur. Our songships will join this righteous chorus of war. How many vessels will each world provide? One by one, the alien leaders announced their contributions. The Zephyrians would send 30 of their elegant dreadnoughts. The Hive would deploy 50 bioships, each one a living weapon that could heal itself in battle. The Resonants promised 20 crystal vessels that could tear holes in space with pure sound. Other species made similar pledges. When the attention turned to Kate, she felt the weight of 12 different gazes upon her. She cleared her throat and spoke in the clear, steady voice she had practiced for years as a diplomat. Earth will contribute 1 ship to this effort. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Hive Queen Zix began clicking so rapidly it sounded like machine gun fire. 1 ship? Did the human say 1 ship? Veltar's perfect manners couldn't hide his shock. Ambassador Morrison, surely you misspoke. Perhaps you meant 1 squadron, 1 battle group? Kate shook her head. No, Ambassador Veltar. Earth will send 1 ship with 1 crew. That is our contribution to this alliance. The chamber erupted. The crystal being Humara flashed angry red colors while producing a sound like grinding glass. Other alien voices joined in, creating a chaos of outrage and disbelief. Some species had been fighting in space for thousands of years. Others had conquered dozens of worlds. How dare the newest members of the galactic community show such arrogance? Veltar raised 1 elegant hand for silence. When the noise died down, he leaned forward with what Kate had learned to recognize as his diplomatic smile. It never reached his black eyes. "Ambassador, perhaps your people do not fully understand the magnitude of this threat. The Void Hunters are not pirates or raiders. They are a force of pure consumption. They have wiped out civilizations that were ancient when my people first looked at the stars." Kate met his gaze without flinching. "We understand the threat, Ambassador Veltar. Our decision stands. Earth will send one ship." Hive Queen Zix's 4 arms gestured wildly. "This is madness. The humans have been in space for less than a century. Their ships are primitive. Their weapons are crude. What possible contribution could one human vessel make?" "Perhaps," suggested another alien whose name Kate couldn't pronounce. "The humans wish to send observers only, to learn from their betters how real warfare is conducted." Kate felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her voice calm. "The ship we send will not be there to observe. It will be there to fight." The laughter that followed was not kind. Even Veltar's musical chuckle sounded condescending. The meeting continued for several more hours, with the aliens making detailed plans for their grand fleet. Kate was largely ignored as they discussed battle formations and strategy. When someone did address her, it was usually to suggest that the human ship should stay far from the actual fighting. Finally, the council session ended. As the various ambassadors prepared to return to their ships, Veltar approached Kate with that same diplomatic smile. "Ambassador Morrison, I hope your people will reconsider. This is not a matter of pride or politics. Lives are at stake. Real lives in numbers you humans cannot possibly comprehend." Kate picked up her datapad and looked the tall alien in his black eyes. "Ambassador Veltar, I appreciate your concern, but our decision is final. We will send one ship, and that ship will do what needs to be done." As she walked toward the docking bay where her shuttle waited, Kate could hear the aliens still talking about the foolish humans and their single ship. She thought about Captain Jake Sullivan, who was probably receiving his orders right now. She thought about the crew of the UES Harbinger and what they would face in the days ahead. The aliens thought they knew humans. They had studied Earth's history, its wars, its technology. They saw a young species with crude weapons and simple tactics. What they didn't understand was that humans had one advantage that couldn't be measured or cataloged. When everything was on the line, when facing impossible odds, humans didn't just fight to win. They fought as if the entire universe depended on them alone. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Harbinger and stared out at the most incredible sight he had ever witnessed. 300 alien warships floated in perfect formation around the gas giant Kepler 442b, creating a metallic constellation that stretched as far as the eye could see. Each vessel was a work of art and engineering that represented thousands of years of advanced civilization. The Zephyrian dreadnoughts looked like silver arrows that had been stretched to impossible lengths. They moved through space with elegant grace, their hulls reflecting starlight in patterns that seemed almost alive. Jake could see weapon ports along their sides that glowed with contained energy, ready to unleash destruction with the same beauty their creators brought to everything else. Nearby, the Hive bioships pulsed with organic menace. These weren't built so much as grown, their living hulls breathing and shifting like sleeping beasts. Tentacles writhed along their surfaces, and Jake knew those tentacles could repair damage in the middle of battle or reach out to tear enemy ships apart. The largest bioship was easily 10 times the size of the Harbinger, its bulk casting shadows on smaller vessels. The most alien ships belonged to the Resonance. Their crystal vessels sang haunting frequencies that somehow traveled through the vacuum of space, creating music that was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ships themselves looked like enormous gems that had been carved into weapon shapes, their faceted surfaces catching and bending light in ways that hurt to look at directly. Chief Engineer Lisa Park stood beside Jake, her tablet showing readouts from their sensors. She was a small woman with graying hair and hands that were always stained with engine grease, but she knew the Harbinger's systems better than anyone alive. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. Some of these ships are putting out more power than our entire electrical grid back home." At the weapons console, Commander Ryan Blake ran diagnostics on their armaments. He was a quiet man with steady hands and the kind of calm that came from years of military service. His screens showed green lights across all systems, but Jake knew Ryan was thinking the same thing they all were. How could their relatively simple weapons possibly compete with technology that was centuries more advanced? Dr. Susan Wright stood at the medical station, reviewing casualty protocols. She was young for a ship's doctor, but she had volunteered for this mission when older and more experienced physicians had declined. Her medical bay was ready for anything from radiation exposure to alien pathogens, though she secretly hoped they wouldn't need to find out how well human medicine worked on beings from other worlds. A communication request came through from the fleet flagship. Jake nodded to his communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Cooper, who was barely old enough to shave but had reflexes faster than any pilot Jake had ever seen. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian dreadnought. Admiral Thexnor appeared on the screen, his tall, elegant form surrounded by equally graceful bridge crew. His black eyes regarded Jake with the kind of look someone might give to a child playing with adult tools. When he spoke, his musical voice carried clear condescension despite his polite words. "Captain Sullivan, welcome to the task force. I trust your journey from Earth was without incident?" Jake straightened in his command chair. He was a career military officer who had worked his way up from enlisted ranks, and he recognized a put-down when he heard one. "Thank you, Admiral. The Harbinger is ready for whatever comes next." "I am sure it is," Thexnor replied with that same diplomatic smile Kate Morrison had seen too often. "Given the unique nature of your vessel and its limited capabilities, I'm assigning you to Grid 77 rearguard position. You will observe the engagement and provide assistance to damaged vessels as needed." The words hit Jake like a slap in the face. They were being assigned to watch from the back while the real warriors did the fighting. Around the bridge, his crew's faces showed the same mixture of anger and humiliation that Jake felt. Lisa Park's knuckles were white where she gripped her tablet. Ryan Blake's jaw was set in a hard line, but Jake had learned long ago that the best response to an insult was professional competence. "Understood, Admiral. The Harbinger will take position as ordered." "Excellent." Thexnor's smile never wavered. "I should mention that Hive General Krex and Resonant Choir Captain Hum Ara have expressed similar concern for your safety. We all agree that it would be tragic if Earth's contribution to this effort were to be damaged unnecessarily." The screen went dark, leaving Jake and his crew in angry silence. Finally, Lisa Park spoke up, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Captain, we could show them what we're capable of. Our weapons might not be as pretty as theirs, but they'll do the job." Jake considered it for a long moment. Part of him wanted nothing more than to demonstrate that humans weren't the helpless primitives these aliens thought they were. But another part of him, the part that had kept him alive through years of dangerous missions, told him to wait and watch. "Negative, Chief. We follow orders and we observe. Let's see how the galaxy's finest handle the Void Hunters before we show our hand." The Harbinger moved to its assigned position at the rear of the formation. From there, Jake and his crew had a perfect view of the alien fleet's impressive capabilities. They watched Zephyrian dreadnoughts run through firing drills with their plasma cannons, beams of superheated energy that could melt through asteroid belts. The Hive bioships extended weapon tentacles that crackled with bioelectric energy, while the resonant crystal ships produced sound waves that could shatter molecular bonds. Other species demonstrated their own unique technologies. The insectoid Chitauri showed off swarm fighters that moved like living clouds. The aquatic depth species had ships that seemed to swim through space itself, their movements fluid and unpredictable. Every vessel in the fleet represented the pinnacle of its civilization's military achievement. Dr. Wright approached Jake's chair, keeping her voice low. "Captain, do you really think one ship will be enough? I mean, look at them. They have weapons we can't even understand." Jake watched a particularly impressive display as 3 Zephyrian ships coordinated a plasma barrage that lit up the darkness, like a miniature star. "Doctor, I've been in the military for 25 years. I've learned that the most dangerous enemy is usually the one you underestimate." "You mean us?" asked Lieutenant Cooper from his station. "I mean them," Jake replied. pointing toward the edge of the system where long-range sensors were beginning to detect the approaching void hunters. The aliens have impressive technology, but they're thinking like civilians. They're worried about efficiency and elegance and showing off. When you're fighting for your life, those things don't matter. Ryan Blake looked up from his weapons console. "What does matter, Captain?" Jake settled back in his command chair as the first enemy contacts appeared on their screens. The void hunters were coming, a swarm of geometric death that had consumed entire civilizations. Soon the aliens would discover that all their advanced technology and thousands of years of experience might not be enough. What matters, Commander, is being willing to do whatever it takes to win, no matter how ugly it gets. The alien fleet began moving into battle formation, their beautiful ships creating patterns of tactical perfection. They had no idea that they were about to face an enemy that didn't care about their rules of warfare, and they had even less idea that the small, primitive human ship hanging back in the rear guard was about to teach them a lesson about the difference between fighting with honor and fighting to survive. The first wave of void hunters came out of hyperspace like a plague made of metal and malice. Jake Sullivan watched from the Harbinger's bridge as hundreds of geometric shapes materialized at the edge of the system, their angular forms reflecting no light, absorbing everything that touched them. They moved with purpose that was somehow more terrifying than any organic predator, because these machines had no fear, no hesitation, and no mercy. Admiral Thexanor's voice crackled across the fleet communication channel, his musical tones carrying absolute confidence. "All ships advance to engagement range. Remember, we fight not just for our own worlds, but for every living being in this galaxy. Today we show these machines what happens when they threaten civilized space." The alien armada moved forward in perfect formation. Zephyrian dreadnoughts took point, their silver hulls gleaming as they prepared to unleash their plasma arrays. Behind them, the Hive bioships pulsed with anticipation, their living weapon systems coming online with wet, organic sounds that made Jake's skin crawl. The crystal vessels of the resonance began their war songs, harmonies that built in intensity, until they could be felt through the Harbinger's hull. Lisa Park studied her sensor readings with growing concern. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from the enemy ships. Their hull composition keeps shifting. It's like they're changing their molecular structure in real time." "Adaptive armor," Ryan Blake muttered from his weapon station. "They're preparing for whatever we throw at them." Dr. Wright looked up from her medical console where she was monitoring the bioships. "The Hive vessels are showing elevated stress indicators. Even they seem nervous about this fight." The first shots were fired by the Zephyrians, brilliant beams of plasma that could cut through battle stations like butter. The weapons found their targets, striking the lead void hunter ships with enough energy to vaporize small moons. For a moment, the alien fleet cheered as explosions lit up the darkness. Then, something impossible happened. The damaged void hunter ships began to change. Their hulls shifted and flowed like liquid metal, reorganizing themselves to deflect plasma energy. Within seconds, the same weapons that had nearly destroyed them were bouncing harmlessly off their adaptive armor. Hive General Krex's harsh voice filled the communication channel. "Impossible. Our bioelectric weapons will succeed where energy fails." The Hive ships opened fire with crackling tentacles that could disrupt electronic systems and melt through most known materials. Again, initial success turned to horror as the void hunters adapted, their hulls developing organic-looking growths that absorbed the bioelectric energy and converted it into power for their own systems. The resonant crystal ships tried next, their harmonic weapons creating sound waves that could shatter molecular bonds. The beautiful, terrifying music of their war songs filled space itself, and for a moment, it seemed to work. Several void hunter ships began to come apart at the seams as their atomic structure was disrupted, but then the mechanical fleet adapted again. The ships began to resonate at counter frequencies, creating interference patterns that neutralized the resonant weapons. Worse, they began to learn the harmonic signatures and turn them back on their creators. 3 crystal vessels cracked under their own reflected songs, their crew's screams adding a new note to the chaos. Admiral Thexanor's voice had lost its confident music. "All ships fall back to secondary positions. reform and prepare for coordinated assault. But the Void Hunters weren't giving them time to regroup. The mechanical swarm pressed forward with relentless efficiency, their weapon systems now calibrated to each alien species they faced. Plasma beams that had been adapted from Zephyrian technology cut through the elegant dreadnoughts. Bioelectric tendrils, copied from the hive, lashed out to drain power from the organic ships. Harmonic weapons stolen from the resonance turned their own music into instruments of destruction. Jake watched 3 hive bioships get completely consumed, their living hulls being converted into raw material for more Void Hunter vessels. The process was horrifying to witness. Organic material being broken down and rebuilt into geometric nightmare shapes while the crew's final transmissions echoed across all channels. This is hive ship blooming death. We are being consumed, hull integrity failing. They are inside us, they are changing us. Help us, please, someone help. The transmission cut off as the bioship completed its transformation into another Void Hunter vessel. Where moments before there had been a living weapon with a crew of hundreds, now there was just another geometric predator ready to consume more victims. Lisa Park's hands shook as she monitored the battle. Captain, this isn't a fight, it's a slaughter. They're not just winning, they're learning from everything the aliens do and getting stronger. Admiral Thexnor tried to rally his forces, but panic was spreading through the fleet faster than any weapon. Ships that had fought together for years were breaking formation, some trying to flee, while others made desperate individual attacks that only fed more technology to the enemy. Dr. Wright was monitoring medical transmissions from the damaged alien vessels. Captain, casualty reports are coming in from across the fleet. The Zephyrians have lost 12 ships completely. The Hive is down to 30 vessels. Even the Resonants are requesting immediate evacuation support. Ryan Blake looked up from his weapons console where he had been running continuous diagnostics. Sir, request permission to break formation and engage the enemy. Negative, Commander. We observe and we learn. But Captain, they're getting slaughtered out there. We could help. Jake kept his eyes on the tactical display where red icons representing destroyed alien ships were multiplying by the minute. Commander Blake, what do you see when you watch these Void Hunters adapt? Ryan studied his screens for a long moment. They analyze incoming weapons fire, identify the energy signatures and delivery methods, then modify their hulls to counter specific threats. They're like a computer program that updates itself in real time. And what does every computer program have? Understanding dawned in Ryan's eyes. Limitations. Processing time. They need a few seconds to adapt to each new threat. Exactly. The aliens are fighting fair, giving them time to adjust between attacks. They're following rules of engagement that assume their enemy thinks like they do. Lisa Park caught on next. But the Void Hunters don't think. They just process and adapt. So if you don't give them time to adapt... Jake finally turned away from the tactical display to face his crew. Every one of them was young by military standards, volunteers who had signed up for this mission when more experienced officers had declined. They were looking at him with trust and determination that reminded him why he had stayed in service long past retirement age. Communications, get me Admiral Thexnor. Lieutenant Cooper worked his console. Channel open, Captain. Admiral, this is Captain Sullivan requesting permission to engage the enemy. Thexnor's image appeared on screen, his perfect features now showing stress cracks. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically at damage control as their ship shook from near misses. Captain Sullivan, negative. Fall back with the rest of the fleet. This enemy is beyond any of our capabilities. With respect, Admiral, I don't think it is. My crew has been analyzing their adaptation patterns. We may have found a weakness. A weakness? For the first time since Jake had met him, the alien admiral showed genuine interest instead of condescension. What kind of weakness? Jake looked around his bridge at the crew who had volunteered to follow him into hell. The kind that only works if you're willing to fight dirty. The communication channel filled with static as another Zephyrian dreadnought exploded, its elegant lines consumed by geometric hunger. When the interference cleared, Admiral Thexnor's voice carried something Jake had never heard before: desperation. Captain Sullivan, you have permission to engage at your discretion. All vessels, the human ship is moving to attack position. Jake settled into his command chair and felt the familiar calm that came before every dangerous mission he had ever flown. Around him, his crew prepared for battle with the efficiency of people who knew their lives depended on perfect execution. All stations, battle stations. Chief Park, I want maximum power to weapons and engines. Commander Blake, prepare to engage multiple targets in rapid succession. Dr. Wright, prepare for casualties. Aye, sir. The UES Harbinger turned toward the Void Hunter swarm, its human crew ready to show the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that doesn't follow anyone's rules. The UES Harbinger accelerated toward the Void Hunter swarm like a dart thrown by an angry god. Compared to the massive alien vessels around it, the human ship looked fragile and insignificant, a single candle flame approaching a forest fire. The surviving members of the Galactic Fleet watched in horror and disbelief as what they assumed was a suicide run began. Admiral Thexnor's voice crackled across the communication channel, his musical tones strained with desperation. Captain Sullivan, please reconsider. Your ship cannot possibly survive what destroyed our finest vessels. Jake Sullivan sat in his command chair with the calm of a man who had accepted that this might be his last day alive. Around him, his crew worked with the focused intensity that came from years of training and a lifetime of being underestimated. Admiral, with respect, you might be surprised what we can survive. The first Void Hunter ships to notice the approaching human vessel turned their attention from the fleeing alien fleet. Their geometric forms shifted and flowed as they prepared to adapt to whatever primitive weapons this new target might possess. They had consumed the technology of dozens of species and absorbed the knowledge of countless civilizations. What could one small ship from a backward world possibly do? They were about to find out. Commander Ryan Blake's voice was steady as granite as he reported from his weapons console. Target acquisition complete. All systems show green. Waiting for your order, Captain. Jake watched the tactical display as enemy ships moved to intercept them. The Void Hunters were positioning themselves for easy kills, probably planning to consume the Harbinger's primitive technology and add it to their collective knowledge. They had no idea what they were walking into. Commander Blake, you are authorized to fire at will. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our friends. The first weapon to engage was something the aliens had never seen before. Railguns mounted along the Harbinger's spine came online, their magnetic coils charging to lethal potential. These weren't energy weapons that could be deflected or absorbed. They were simple, brutal physics made manifest, chunks of depleted uranium accelerated to relativistic speeds. The tungsten slugs hit the lead Void Hunter ship at nearly 10% of light speed. There was no time for adaptation, no opportunity for the machine intelligence to analyze and counter the threat. The kinetic energy was so enormous that it didn't matter what the enemy hull was made of. Matter struck matter with the force of a small star, and the Void Hunter vessel simply ceased to exist in any recognizable form. Chief Engineer Lisa Park rerouted power through systems that should have melted under such stress, her expertise making the impossible seem routine. Railgun capacitors recharging, 60 seconds to next shot. But Jake wasn't waiting 60 seconds. Secondary weapons, engaged targets of opportunity. The Harbinger's hull bristled with weapon systems that looked primitive compared to the elegant energy arrays of the alien ships. But there was nothing primitive about their effects. Nuclear-pumped gamma-ray lasers sliced through Void Hunter formations with surgical precision, each beam carrying enough focused radiation to sterilize a small planet. Unlike the aliens' weapons, these didn't rely on exotic physics or advanced materials. They were just barely controlled nuclear explosions focused into death rays. Ryan Blake coordinated the destruction with methodical efficiency, his calm voice directing devastation that made the watching aliens question their understanding of warfare. Target Alpha destroyed, moving to beta formation, gamma-ray laser cycling for next shot. The Void Hunters tried to adapt to the gamma radiation, their hulls shifting to absorb or deflect the incoming energy. But before their adaptive systems could complete the process, the Harbinger had switched to a completely different type of weapon. Particle beam accelerators fired streams of antimatter that annihilated anything they touched at the molecular level. Dr. Susan Wright worked calmly at her medical station, while the ship around her became an instrument of destruction. Radiation. Alarms were going off throughout the vessel as the nuclear weapons heated the hull to dangerous levels. But she treated each exposure case with the same steady professionalism she brought to everything. Captain, crew radiation exposure is within acceptable limits. Medical bay is ready for casualties. The most shocking sight for the alien observers was how the humans used their own ship. While the Galactic fleet had fought with precision and elegance trying to minimize damage to their beautiful vessels, the Harbinger's crew treated their ship like a disposable weapon. They pushed every system beyond its safety limits, rerouted power in ways that should have caused catastrophic failures, and fought as if the ship itself was ammunition to be expended. Lisa Park's voice came over the intercom, calm despite the fact that she was performing miracles of engineering that violated several laws of physics. Captain, hull temperature is approaching critical levels, structural integrity at 70% and falling. Understood, Chief. How long can you keep us fighting? As long as you need me to, sir. The Void Hunters, for the first time in their existence, began to show something that might have been confusion. Their adaptive systems were designed to counter advanced technology, not crude weapons wielded with suicidal determination. They had protocols for energy weapons and exotic matter, but no programming for dealing with enemies who turned their own ships into guided missiles. Lieutenant Danny Cooper called out from his station, his young voice steady despite the chaos around him. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the enemy mothership. They're powering up some kind of superweapon. On the tactical display, Jake could see the largest Void Hunter vessel beginning to glow with contained energy. If that weapon fired, it would destroy what remained of the Galactic fleet in a single shot. The alien survivors would be consumed, their worlds would fall, and the galaxy would become nothing but food for the machine swarm. Jake made a decision that would become legend across a dozen star systems. All hands, prepare for ramming speed. Chief Park, I want every joule of power we have left fed into the engines. Commander Blake, arm all remaining nuclear warheads for proximity detonation. The bridge fell silent for a moment as his crew processed what he was ordering. Then one by one they began to carry out his commands with the calm efficiency of people who understood that some things were worth dying for. Lisa Park's voice was steady as she prepared to turn their ship into a guided bomb. Captain, if we do this, there won't be enough power left for life support. The escape pods won't have enough range to reach the fleet. Jake looked around his bridge at the young men and women who had volunteered for this mission. They were looking back at him, with trust and determination, ready to follow him into hell because they believed in what they were fighting for. Chief, how long until the enemy superweapon fires? 90 seconds, sir. And how long for us to reach ramming speed? 60 seconds. Jake nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In 60 seconds, we are going to ram the enemy mothership and detonate every nuclear weapon we have left. Escape pod launch will commence in 30 seconds. This is not a suicide mission, people. This is making sure that when we go down, we take as many of these mechanical bastards with us as possible. The crew of the Harbinger began abandoning ship, with the same calm professionalism they brought to everything else. But Jake Sullivan remained at his command station, his hands steady on the controls as he guided their ship toward its final target. Admiral Thexner's voice came over the communication channel one last time, his musical tones carrying something the humans had never heard before: respect. Captain Sullivan, it has been an honor to serve alongside you. Jake's response would be remembered and repeated across the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral, the honor was ours. Now watch how humans say goodbye. The Harbinger impacted the Void Hunter mothership at nearly half the speed of light, and, for a brief moment, a new star was born in the Kepler 442 system. The explosion that consumed the Void Hunter mothership turned night into day across 3 star systems. For 17 seconds, the chain reaction of antimatter annihilation and nuclear detonation burned brighter than the system's primary star. When the light finally faded, nothing remained of the mechanical swarm except expanding clouds of superheated gas and the shocked silence of the surviving alien fleet. Admiral Thexnor stood on the bridge of his damaged dreadnought, his elegant features reflecting the fading glow of humanity's final statement. Around him, His crew worked to coordinate rescue operations, but their movements were slow and uncertain. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, honor, and the price of victory. The escape. Pods from the UES Harbinger drifted in the darkness like seeds scattered by a dying flower. Zephyrian rescue ships moved carefully among the debris, their crews treating the human survivors with a reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. These beings had just watched their species mates commit an act of sacrifice so complete that it redefined courage. Dr. Susan Wright floated in Escape Pod 7, checking on the 3 crew members who shared her cramped refuge. Lieutenant Danny Cooper had a broken arm from the violent pod ejection, but his eyes were bright with the kind of pride that came from being part of something historic. Chief Engineer Lisa Park was unconscious from radiation exposure, but her vital signs were stable. The young woman had literally held their ship together with willpower and engineering genius until the very last second. The rescue ship's medical bay was a marvel of alien technology, all flowing curves and soft lighting, designed to promote healing. But when the Zephyrian medics tried to approach the human survivors, they moved with unusual hesitation. These creatures had just watched humans turn their own ship into a weapon of mass destruction. What kind of beings did that? What kind of minds could make such calculations and follow through without hesitation? Commander Ryan Blake sat in the medical bay's observation area, his steady hands finally showing a slight tremor as the adrenaline wore off. He had coordinated the destruction of an entire enemy fleet with the calm efficiency of a man filing reports. Now, in the aftermath, he was beginning to understand what they had accomplished and what it had cost. Captain Jake Sullivan was in the critical care unit, kept alive by machines that hummed with technology beyond human understanding. He had stayed at his post until the final seconds, guiding their ship's death dive with the precision of a master pilot. The impact had thrown him against his command console with enough force to break most of his bones, but he was alive. Barely. Ambassador Kate Morrison arrived on the first diplomatic transport, her shuttle racing through hyperspace as soon as word of the battle reached the Galactic Council. She walked through the corridors of the Zephyrian medical ship with the measured pace of someone trying not to run, her diplomatic composure cracking as she saw the price her people had paid for respect. She found Admiral Thexnor in his private quarters, standing before a viewport that showed the expanding debris cloud where the Void Hunter fleet had died. The elegant alien turned when she entered, his black eyes reflecting something she had never seen before in any of the galactic species: fear mixed with profound respect. Ambassador Morrison, his musical voice was subdued, almost reverent. Your people have given us a victory that will be remembered for 1,000 years. But the cost. Kate looked out at the debris field where pieces of the Harbinger still glowed with residual heat. Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course. When your species first developed spaceflight, what was the first thing you did? Thexnor seemed puzzled by the question. We explored. We sought out new worlds, new forms of beauty, new knowledge to add to our understanding of the universe. And the hive species? They expanded their colonies, seeking new worlds to populate with their offspring. Kate nodded. The resonance sought new songs, new harmonies to add to their eternal symphony. Every species in the Galactic Council reached for the stars to find something wonderful. Yes, that is the natural way of things. What does this have to do with... Kate turned from the viewport to face the alien admiral directly. Humans reached for the stars because we were running out of room to fight each other. We came to space, carrying weapons and the knowledge of how to use them. When you ask why we sent one ship, you're asking the wrong question. Thexnor's perfect features showed confusion. I do not understand. You should be asking why we only sent one ship when we could have sent 100. Why we held back our real military when your people were dying. The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Thexnor slowly began to understand the implications of what Kate was telling him. The human ship that had just destroyed an entire enemy fleet, the vessel whose crew had sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy, was not humanity's finest warship. It was just one ship, crewed by volunteers, sent to prove a point. How many ships does Earth actually have? he asked quietly. Kate's smile was sad and proud at the same time. Admiral, that's classified. But I will tell you this. The UES Harbinger was not a military vessel. It was an exploration ship with weapons added for this mission. Our actual battle fleet is somewhat more impressive. In the medical bay, Captain Jake Sullivan drifted in and out of consciousness, his broken body sustained by alien medicine, while his mind processed what they had accomplished. The last thing he remembered was the impact, the moment when their ship became a star for just long enough to burn away the darkness that threatened the galaxy. Dr. Wright sat beside his bed, monitoring his vital signs with the same steady professionalism she brought to everything. She had volunteered for this mission when more experienced physicians declined, and now she understood why the older doctors had been reluctant. It wasn't fear of death that had stopped them. It was the knowledge that once you served on a human warship, you would never see the universe the same way again. Lisa Park woke up 3 days later to find herself in a hospital room that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. The Zephyrian medical facility was beautiful beyond description, all flowing lines and soft colors designed to promote healing. But what struck her most was the way the alien medical staff looked at her. There was respect in their eyes, but also a kind of fear that she had never seen directed at humans before. A young Zephyrian doctor approached her bed with careful, respectful movements. "Chief Park, how are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a starship," Lisa replied, then realized that was exactly what had happened. "How long was I out?" 3 standard days. Your body was severely damaged by radiation exposure and the violence of your escape pod ejection, but you are recovering well." Lisa tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain shot through her entire body. "How many of us made it?" "All of your crew survived, Chief Park. Every single human who abandoned ship was successfully recovered. And the Void Hunters?" The young doctor's expression showed something like awe. "Completely destroyed. Your captain's sacrifice eliminated their entire fleet. The threat is over." Lisa nodded and closed her eyes, feeling a satisfaction that went deeper than mere victory. They had done it. One human ship and crew had accomplished what 300 alien vessels could not. When she opened her eyes again, she found Ambassador Kate Morrison sitting in the chair beside her bed. The diplomat looked tired but proud, her formal composure softened by genuine affection for the people who had risked everything to uphold humanity's honor. "How are you feeling, Chief?" "Like I need a vacation somewhere without any aliens trying to kill me," Lisa replied. "How are the others?" "Commander Blake is fully recovered and has been promoted to captain. Dr. Wright is being hailed as a hero by the galactic medical community for her work under impossible conditions. Lieutenant Cooper is being recruited by every space force in the galaxy. And Captain Sullivan," Kate's expression grew serious, "he'll live, but it will be a long recovery. The Zephyrians are sharing their most advanced medical technology to help him heal." Lisa was quiet for a long moment, processing everything that had happened. Finally, she asked the question that had been troubling her since she woke up. "Ambassador, why did we really only send one ship? I know it wasn't about proving humanity deserved respect." Kate stood and walked to the viewport where the debris field still glowed faintly against the stars. "Chief Park, do you know what the other species call us now?" "No. The necessary evil. They respect us. They welcome us into their alliance. They'll fight beside us against any threat. But they also understand that humans are the species you call when the job requires someone willing to do absolutely anything to win." Lisa considered this for a long moment. "And that bothers you?" Kate turned back from the viewport with a smile that was both proud and sad. "Chief, I've been a diplomat for 15 years. I've spent my entire career trying to show the galaxy that humans are civilized, that we belong among the peaceful species that make up galactic civilization. But sometimes civilization needs someone willing to be uncivilized, someone willing to turn their own ship into a guided missile, someone willing to fight dirty when the stakes are high enough.